Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be checking out The Happy Manager by Adela Masarykova.
Oh, cool.
And basically, we're going to be looking at how to apply her advice and experience
Hmm.
to make our own teams happier, more productive, all that good stuff.
Nice.
Adela's got like 10 years of experience
Hmm.
managing people, including 6 years leading a team of like 40 people.
Wow, that's
So she's
sounds
not,
substantial too.
yeah, she's not just some, armchair theorist or anything like that.
Right.
She's got some real world experience.
It's always better to hear from somebody who's actually done it rather than just, talking about it.
Definitely.
And you know what I think is really cool about Adela's approach is that she really emphasizes this core belief that success hinges on having the right people in the right positions.
Oh, interesting.
It sounds like common sense, right?
Right.
But she actually gives a really interesting story about a salesperson on her team who was phenomenal at client care, but just really struggled with acquiring new business. And, she kind of had this aha moment where she realized, wait a minute, maybe I need to split this sales role into two separate positions.
Mhm.
So she ended up creating one role specifically focused on client care and another one laser focused on acquisition. And guess what?
What happened?
Their revenue skyrocketed
Oh, wow.
because each person was able to really play to their strengths.
That's so smart.
Yeah, it's a great example of how sometimes a little bit of restructuring can make a huge difference.
Definitely. And it makes me think about, like, even in my own work, like, am I in the right position?
That's a great question to ask yourself. And actually, Adela provides this really practical framework for analyzing employee performance. And it all starts with this question of, do they know what to do?
Okay.
And she actually illustrates this with a funny story about miscommunication with her assistant about distributing flyers.
Oh, no.
She thought she had been super clear with the instructions, but it turned out the assistant had a completely different understanding of what was supposed to happen.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, and it's a great reminder that sometimes underperformance isn't due to lack of competence, but simply a lack of clarity.
Right.
So Adela encourages us to explore those potential knowledge gaps before jumping to conclusions about someone's ability.
That makes sense.
Her second step then delves into whether employees know how to perform their tasks effectively.
Okay.
So this is where providing the right training and setting crystal clear expectations become absolutely crucial.
So it's really about making sure people have the tools and the guidance they need to succeed.
Exactly.
And I imagine open communication is key throughout this whole process, right?
Absolutely. Adela really stresses the importance of ongoing dialogue, checking in with your team members, and ensuring that everyone's on the same page.
I love that.
Now, the third step tackles a bit of a trickier question, and that is, do they want to do it?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Right, it delves into the realm of motivation, and Adela argues that if someone consistently lacks drive, even with the knowledge and the skills, it might be time for a difficult conversation.
It almost sounds like you're saying that sometimes it's not about ability, but about desire.
Precisely, and it's not about giving up on people, but about recognizing that sometimes a change might be necessary.
So what do you do in those situations where someone clearly has the skills, but just doesn't seem engaged?
Adela suggests exploring potential repositioning within the company.
Interesting.
Maybe their talents would be better suited for a different role or a different department. But she also makes a really compelling case for letting go of the wrong individuals, even if it's emotionally challenging.
I imagine that's really hard to do.
It definitely is, but she argues that clinging to those who aren't thriving can actually hinder the progress of the entire team.
That makes sense.
And, she even bravely shares her personal experience of letting go of a well-liked salesperson who just wasn't delivering results despite everyone's best efforts.
Wow, that must have been a tough decision.
It was, but ultimately it was the right decision for both the individual and the company.
So sometimes making a tough call is actually the kindest thing you can do.
Precisely. And that leads us to Adela's fourth and final step in this framework, which is, are they capable?
Hmm.
Sometimes, despite our best intentions and efforts, an individual simply might not be the right fit.
Right.
Adela acknowledges the human element of these situations and emphasizes that saying goodbye is never easy.
It's never fun to let someone go.
Absolutely. But she also stresses the importance of recognizing when it's necessary for the overall health and success of the team.
Okay, so now that we've looked at these 4 steps, what's next?
So based on this framework, Adela outlines 3 possible scenarios you might encounter with your team. The ideal situation, of course, is having the right people in the right roles.
Makes sense.
But you might also find yourself with the right people in the wrong positions,
Okay.
which calls for some strategic shuffling. Maybe someone's talents would be better utilized elsewhere.
Like with Adela's salesperson who was great at client care, but not so much at acquisition.
Exactly. And then lastly, you might have individuals who just aren't a good fit regardless of their position. And that's where those tough decisions about letting go come into play.
Right. So it's really about having the courage to make those difficult choices.
Absolutely. And Adela actually emphasizes that it's often easier to find a skilled account manager than a naturally gifted salesperson.
Oh, interesting.
So if you have someone with fantastic client relationship skills, but they're struggling in a sales-heavy role, maybe their talents could be better utilized elsewhere.
That's a really good point.
She then presents this fascinating case study about a teacher who was promoted to a methodologist role. He possessed the knowledge and the skills, but really struggled with self-organization, which ultimately impacted his performance. And, what's really inspiring is that this employee recognized his limitations and decided to return to teaching where he truly thrived.
Oh, I love that.
Sometimes taking a step back can actually lead to greater fulfillment and success.
That's such a good reminder because sometimes we think career progression always has to be upwards, but sometimes a lateral move can be even better.
Exactly. It's not always about climbing the ladder, but about finding the role where you can truly shine.
So this whole idea of putting the right people in the right positions is really about setting everyone up for success.
Absolutely. And, Adela's adamant that managers should focus on nurturing their top performers, not fixated on constantly trying to fix underperformers.
I like that.
While she believes in second chances, she recognizes that if it's not working, it might be time to make a difficult decision.
It's about recognizing when to invest your energy and when to make a change.
Precisely. And she even admits that this was initially a struggle for her, as she tends to lead with her heart.
Ah,
However, building a high-performing team requires courage to make those tough calls when necessary.
so it's about finding that balance between compassion and making the best decision for the team as a whole.
Exactly. And Adela candidly shares that she finally considers herself a happy manager because everyone on her team is in a position where they can leverage their strengths and passions.
That's wonderful.
And I think that's a powerful goal to strive for. It prompts us to ask ourselves, are our team members in positions where their unique abilities are fully utilized? Are we creating an environment where they can truly excel?
Those are great questions to reflect on.
Now, Adela also shares this really inspiring story about her top salesperson who actually began her journey as a teacher within the company.
Oh, wow. So she wasn't even hired for a sales position initially.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is that Adela spotted this employee's exceptional communication skills and saw potential for a different role, even though the employee hadn't considered it herself.
So she saw something in this person that maybe even they didn't see in themselves.
Precisely. Adela nurtured those skills, gradually moving her into client management and eventually into sales, where she truly flourished.
It sounds like it was a process.
It definitely took time and strategic planning, but the result was a win-win for both the employee and the company.
That's incredible, and it really highlights how a manager can act as a mentor and guide, helping team members unearth hidden talents and achieve their full potential. So if we were to summarize this initial section of the book, what would be the key takeaways?
I'd say it lays the groundwork for Adela's approach to management. It's about thoughtful hiring, recognizing that roles might need adjustments, and understanding that sometimes saying goodbye is the best course of action for everyone involved.
And ultimately, it's about creating a team where everyone feels valued, empowered, and positioned to succeed.
Exactly, which benefits both the individuals and the organization as a whole.
That's such a powerful message, and it makes me eager to hear what else Adela has to share.
Well, building on this foundation, she then dives into the crucial aspect of supportive feedback.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so imagine a world where feedback is seen as a gift rather than a punishment.
Interesting. I'm listening.
Adela contends that feedback, both positive and negative, is absolutely vital for employee growth and development, but she challenges the traditional view of negative feedback as demotivating.
So how does she suggest approaching negative feedback in a way that's actually helpful?
Instead of dwelling on past mistakes, she posits that it should focus on improvement and future actions.
So it's about looking forward, not backward.
Precisely. And she encourages managers to envision themselves in the employee's position when delivering feedback.
Oh, that's interesting.
This empathy, she argues, fosters a more constructive and supportive approach, leading to greater receptiveness and positive change.
I can definitely see how that would make a difference.
Now, one of Adela's key insights is this concept of graduated feedback.
Graduated feedback. Tell me more about that.
So the idea is that you adjust your approach based on whether a rule is broken for the first, second, or third time.
Okay, that makes sense.
So for a first-time infraction, understanding and motivation are key.
It's about helping the employee learn from the mistake and prevent it from happening again.
Exactly. But if the rule is broken a second time, it signals a need for clearer expectations and consequences.
So you're stepping up the seriousness a bit.
Right. By the third infraction, Adela suggests a more structured approach involving closer supervision and detailed reporting.
Oh, wow. So it's really about escalating the response based on the repetition of the issue.
Precisely. This ensures that the issue is addressed seriously and provides the necessary support to prevent further slip-ups.
That's a really interesting approach. So when it comes to delivering feedback, is it better to do it regularly or wait for like a formal performance review?
Adela is a big advocate for delivering feedback immediately, both positive and negative.
Okay, so no waiting for that mid-year review.
Exactly. She says keep it fresh in everyone's minds, and it allows for timely adjustments and course correction.
And I'm guessing she's not a fan of the sandwich technique?
You guessed it. She vehemently opposes sandwiching negative feedback between positive comments.
I can see why. Because it almost feels like you're trying to disguise the criticism.
Right. Adela argues that this approach dilutes the impact of both types of feedback and can even breed distrust of praise.
Employees might start wondering if the positive feedback is genuine or just a way to soften the blow.
Exactly. Instead, she champions clear, concise, and specific feedback.
So no beating around the bush.
Nope. She even offers concrete examples of impactful positive feedback phrases.
Like what?
One of her favorites is, "You handled that upset client fantastically, especially the way you remained calm and listened attentively."
That's great because it's specific and genuine.
Exactly. It reinforces the desired behaviors without feeling generic or insincere.
I like that. And sometimes a simple thank you can go a long way, right?
Absolutely. Adela reminds us that recognizing and appreciating your team's efforts can be incredibly powerful in building morale and motivation.
It's about acknowledging the hard work and dedication.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And, numerous studies, including those from the Energy Project, show that supportive supervisors lead to higher retention and engagement.
So there's actual data to back this up.
Oh, yeah. Employees who feel valued and appreciated are more likely to stay with the company and invest wholeheartedly in their work.
It makes perfect sense. It's about creating a positive and supportive work environment where people feel motivated to contribute their best.
Absolutely. And, Adela even reveals a vulnerable moment from her own experience. A team survey indicated that her employees felt a lack of support.
Wow, so even she's had to work on this aspect of her leadership.
Exactly. It prompted her to make personal changes in her management style.
That's so powerful because it shows that even seasoned managers can benefit from feedback and strive for continuous improvement.
Absolutely. We're all learning and growing all the time.
So what's one practical tip that Adela offers for incorporating feedback into our daily routines?
She suggests scheduling feedback into your diary.
Oh, that's smart. Because otherwise, it's easy to let it slip through the cracks.
Exactly. Make it a priority, not an afterthought. Dedicate time to recognizing your team's achievements and addressing any areas for improvement.
I love that. And maybe even set a daily goal of praising at least one person on your team.
That's a great idea. It's about weaving appreciation and support into the fabric of your managerial routine.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, Adela contends that the right individuals are inherently self-motivated.
Absolutely. But she also cautions that even the most driven individuals can be stifled by a micromanaging environment.
Oh, I can definitely see that happening.
She shares a cautionary tale about a friend who worked in an online marketing team where the manager insisted on controlling every single detail.
Oh no, I can imagine that wasn't a very empowering experience.
Not at all. It stifled creativity, hampered productivity, and ultimately led to several talented individuals leaving the company in search of a more empowering workplace.
So micromanaging can actually backfire and hurt the team in the long run.
Exactly. And Adela really underscores the importance of fostering independence and avoiding a situation where employees become overly reliant on the manager for every decision.
It's about empowering them to take ownership of their work.
Precisely. She uses a vivid analogy to illustrate this point.
Oh, I love a good analogy. What is it?
She likens a manager who needs to sign off on everything to someone holding onto the reins so tightly that they choke the horse.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Right. It highlights the dangers of stifling initiative and preventing employees from taking ownership of their work.
And I imagine that kind of controlling style also leads to manager burnout.
Absolutely. It limits the team's potential for growth and innovation because everything has to go through the manager's bottleneck.
It creates an unnecessary dependency.
Precisely. Adela even recounts a story about a manager who deliberately kept her employees dependent on her wanting to be involved in every single decision.
Almost sounds like a power play.
It can definitely feel that way, and Adela argues that this controlling style ultimately undermines both the manager's well-being and the team's ability to reach their full potential.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Exactly. And this leads us to Adela's concept of motivation by responsibility.
Motivation by responsibility. I like the sound of that.
She proposes that giving employees autonomy fosters greater effort and long-term engagement.
So it's about trusting them to do their jobs and make decisions.
Precisely. She contrasts two employee scenarios, one where an individual is heavily supervised, and the other where they have clear responsibility and the freedom to make independent decisions.
Okay, I'm curious to hear how these two scenarios play out.
So in Adela's example, the employee with greater responsibility consistently exceeds expectations driven by intrinsic motivation and a desire to excel.
They're taking pride in their work and going the extra mile.
Exactly. They feel a sense of ownership and are invested in the outcome.
What about the heavily supervised individual?
They simply go through the motions, lacking the intrinsic drive to go above and beyond.
Because they don't feel that same sense of ownership.
Precisely. They're just following orders without feeling truly invested in the work.
So giving employees autonomy not only benefits them, but also benefits the manager, because they don't have to constantly supervise every little detail.
Exactly. It frees up the manager's time and energy to focus on bigger picture issues.
It sounds like a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Adela does acknowledge that relinquishing control can be challenging for managers accustomed to a more directive style.
I can imagine it takes a leap of faith.
It does, but she encourages managers to trust their team and provide the support necessary for them to flourish.
So it's about finding that balance between providing guidance and giving them the freedom to make decisions.
Precisely. And she outlines a three-step process for guiding employees towards independent problem solving.
Oh, interesting. I'd love to hear more about this three-step process.
So the first step is when an issue arises, instead of dictating a solution, ask your team members for their ideas.
Okay, so it's about empowering them to come up with solutions.
Exactly. It demonstrates confidence in their capabilities and encourages them to take ownership of the problem.
That makes sense.
The second step is to give them the space and reassurance to think things through without hovering over their shoulders.
So it's about trusting them to figure it out.
Exactly. This fosters a sense of trust and allows them to explore different approaches without feeling pressured.
I like that.
And lastly, engage in a collaborative discussion of their proposed solutions.
So it's not about completely letting them go, but about providing guidance and support along the way.
Precisely. Provide feedback and offer suggestions, but refrain from dictating the outcome.
So it's about helping them develop their problem-solving skills and build confidence in their abilities.
Exactly. And, Adela shares that she's often been pleasantly surprised by the innovative solutions her team has devised when given the freedom to think independently.
So sometimes stepping back and letting go can actually lead to more creative and effective solutions.
Absolutely. It's about tapping into the collective wisdom and creativity of the team.
I love that. Now, do you have any specific examples of how this three-step process has worked in Adela's experience?
She recounts an inspiring story about an employee who was tasked with recruiting new teachers.
Okay, what happened?
The existing process was cumbersome and inefficient, leading to frustration and dissatisfaction.
I can imagine that's a recipe for burnout.
Exactly. But instead of simply allocating more resources, Adela challenged this employee to devise a more streamlined solution.
So she turned it into an opportunity for growth and innovation.
Precisely. And what happened next is remarkable. This employee completely revamped the process, introducing efficiencies and boosting both his own satisfaction and the company's overall effectiveness.
That's incredible. So by giving him the responsibility and the autonomy to solve the problem, she unlocked his potential and achieved a better outcome for everyone.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates how empowering employees can spark unexpected innovation and process improvements.
It's about shifting from a mindset of control to a mindset of trust and empowerment.
Precisely.
Now, I'm curious about the flip side of this. What happens when employees are micromanaged or don't feel trusted?
Adela highlights the difference in commitment when individuals are entrusted with responsibility.
How so?
They become more invested in the success of their endeavors, striving to achieve the best possible outcome.
Because they feel a sense of ownership and pride?
Exactly. But conversely, excessive control and a lack of trust can be incredibly demotivating.
People lose their enthusiasm and drive.
Precisely. When we micromanage or constantly second-guess our team, We send a message that we doubt their capabilities.
And they can extinguish their enthusiasm and stifle their initiative.
Exactly. It creates a negative cycle of distrust and disengagement.
So it's really about finding that sweet spot between providing support and giving employees the freedom to shine.
Absolutely. And Adela firmly believes that by cultivating a culture of trust and autonomy, managers free themselves to concentrate on broader strategic goals.
Whether that's developing new initiatives or simply achieving a healthier work-life balance.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
This segment truly highlights the shift from a manager-centric model to a more collaborative one.
Absolutely. Employees are empowered to contribute their ideas and take ownership of their work, fostering a more fulfilling and equitable partnership between managers and their teams.
I love that. And it makes me excited to explore the next aspect of Adela's approach, which is boosting the meaning of work.
Oh, yes, this is a fascinating topic. She draws inspiration from Viktor Frankl's profound quote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how."
That's a powerful quote.
It is, and Adela invites us to reflect on our own experiences. Have we ever worked on projects where the purpose felt nebulous or even meaningless?
That's a great question to ask ourselves, because I think we've all been there at some point.
It's a question that resonates deeply, especially in today's fast-paced work environment.
We're often so focused on getting things done that we forget to ask ourselves why we're doing them in the first place.
Exactly. And Adela connects this sense of purpose to employee engagement.
How so?
She argues that when individuals find meaning in their work, they're more motivated, loyal, and fulfilled.
It's not just about going through the motions. It's about feeling connected to something larger than themselves.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And understanding how their contributions make a difference.
And I imagine there's research to support this idea that meaning is linked to greater job satisfaction.
Oh, absolutely. Extensive research from the Energy Project substantiates this notion.
So it's not just a feel-good concept. It's backed by data.
Exactly. Employees who derive meaning from their work are significantly more likely to remain with their organizations and report higher levels of job satisfaction.
It makes sense. When you feel like your work matters, you're more likely to be invested in it.
Precisely. It transcends a mere paycheck. It's about feeling like you're part of something truly meaningful.
I love that.
Okay.
Now, how does Adela suggest we cultivate this sense of meaning in the workplace?
She introduces Simon Sinek's compelling cathedral analogy to illustrate this concept.
Oh, I've heard of this analogy. I'm curious to hear how she applies it.
So imagine two stonemasons working on the same wall.
Okay.
One perceives it as a monotonous task.
Just laying brick after brick.
Exactly. While the other envisions it as a contribution to constructing a magnificent cathedral.
Wow, what a difference in perspective.
Right. It's a potent reminder that the way we frame our work can profoundly impact our motivation and sense of purpose.
So it's about helping employees see the bigger picture.
Exactly. Adela argues that managers bear a responsibility to articulate the why behind their company's mission.
So it's not enough to just tell people what to do. You have to explain why it matters.
Precisely. Help employees grasp how their individual roles contribute to a larger objective.
I love that.
She offers some compelling examples of defining the why behind everyday business activities.
Like what?
For instance, a company selling parenting courses isn't merely offering a service. They're empowering parents to raise healthy and well-adjusted children.
That's beautiful.
A language school isn't just teaching grammar and vocabulary. They're equipping individuals with the skills to communicate confidently and pursue new opportunities.
So it's about connecting the dots between daily tasks and a larger purpose.
Exactly. Enabling employees to see the ripple effect of their contributions.
I love that. But I imagine this approach not only benefits employees, but also benefits the company as a whole.
Absolutely. Adela shares how this philosophy has shaped her own company, which prioritizes high-quality teaching and focuses on assisting clients in achieving their language goals.
So it's not just about selling courses. It's about making a tangible difference in people's lives.
Precisely. And this commitment to meaning has not only yielded client satisfaction, but has also attracted and retained a passionate and dedicated team of teachers.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
finding your why can actually be a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. Now, Adela challenges us to reflect on our own work.
What are we building in our companies?
Hmm.
Do our team members understand the why?
Those are powerful questions to consider.
Definitely. And I appreciate that she acknowledges that not every job is inherently glamorous.
Right. But she asserts that we can always uncover ways to amplify meaning, even in seemingly mundane tasks.
So it's not about the task itself, but about how we frame it.
Precisely. She provides some practical strategies for accomplishing this,
Such as?
linking tasks to tangible project outcomes, emphasizing contributions to internal clients, and highlighting the positive impact of individual roles on the team as a whole.
So it's about helping employees see the value they bring to the table, even if their tasks might seem small or insignificant.
Exactly. It's about shifting perspectives and recognizing that every contribution matters.
I love that. Now, do you have any specific examples of how Adela has successfully boosted meaning in a seemingly mundane role?
She shares a compelling example from her company. She helped a team member who felt stuck in a repetitive task discover greater meaning in their work.
Oh, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
This employee was responsible for creating the weekly language lesson schedule, which involved a lot of data entry and tedious adjustments.
It sounds like a role that could easily feel uninspiring.
It was. And instead of trying to alter the nature of the task itself, Adela reframed the employee's perspective.
How does she do that?
She highlighted the critical importance of a well-crafted schedule for the teachers, account managers, and methodologists who relied on it.
So she helped the employees see how their work impacted others.
Exactly. By emphasizing the impact of this employee's work on their colleagues, Adela helped them perceive their role as integral to the team's success.
Wow, what a difference a shift in perspective can make.
The result was the employee became more engaged, more fulfilled, and ultimately took on greater responsibility within the company.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a striking example of how a simple shift in perspective can unlock hidden meaning and ignite motivation.
Absolutely. And Adela also stresses the role of positive relationships in making work more meaningful.
So it's not just about the task itself. It's about the people we work with.
Exactly. She urges managers to connect with their employees on a personal level, celebrating successes together, offering support during challenging times, and cultivating a positive work environment where everyone feels valued and appreciated.
So it's about creating a sense of community and belonging.
Precisely.
This segment encourages us to move beyond a purely transactional view of work and embrace the human element.
Absolutely. It's about fostering a sense of purpose, belonging, and connection, which ultimately leads to greater satisfaction and productivity for both individuals and the organization as a whole.
I love that. Now, as we approach the end of our deep dive, let's distill Adela's wisdom into 10 actionable takeaways.
Oh, a concise guide for cultivating a happier and more productive team. I like it.
Sounds good. So what's number one?
Number one is ensure you've placed the right individuals in roles that ignite their passion and leverage their strengths.
It all starts with putting people in positions where they can truly shine.
Exactly.
Okay, what's number two?
Number two is cultivate a culture of continuous feedback, providing specific, actionable guidance that empowers growth.
Feedback is a gift, not a punishment.
Precisely.
Okay, what about number three?
Number three, ditch the dreaded sandwich technique. Embrace honest, direct, and constructive feedback that's delivered with empathy and sincerity.
No more sugarcoating.
Exactly.
Okay, number four.
Number four, unleash the power of responsibility, grant autonomy, and trust your team to make decisions. This fosters engagement and frees you to focus on strategic initiatives.
It's about empowering your team to step up.
Precisely.
Okay, what about number five?
Number five, infuse meaning into every task by connecting it to the larger purpose and vision of the company.
Help your employees understand how their contributions make a difference.
Exactly.
Okay, number six.
Number six, nurture strong relationships by demonstrating genuine interest in your employees' lives and well-being.
Small gestures of kindness and appreciation can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Number seven.
Number seven, be a playing captain, willing to participate alongside your team and demonstrate that every contribution is valued.
Lead by example.
Precisely.
Number eight.
Number eight, prioritize employee development. Offer opportunities for growth and foster a culture of continuous learning. Invest in your team's future.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
Number nine.
Number nine, embrace collaboration. Involve your team in goal-setting, strategy development, and decision-making processes.
Create a shared sense of ownership.
Exactly.
And finally, number 10.
Number 10, remember that you, the manager, are human too.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Precisely. Take care of your own well-being, and your positive energy will radiate outward, creating a more supportive environment for your entire team.
So self-care is not selfish. It's essential for effective leadership.
Absolutely.
These 10 powerful takeaways from the Happy Manager can truly revolutionize your leadership style and unlock the full potential of your team.
They're a blueprint for creating a happier, more productive, and more fulfilling work environment.
Go forth, embrace these principles, and witness the transformation within your team and yourself. Until next time, Keep diving deep.
So Adela kind of paints this picture of a world where feedback isn't this dreaded thing, but it's actually seen as a gift.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Right, like something that can help us learn and grow.
Definitely.
She says that feedback, both positive and negative, is crucial for employees to grow and develop, but she doesn't really see negative feedback as this like demotivating thing.
So how does she think we should approach it then?
Well, she thinks that instead of like dwelling on past mistakes, negative feedback should really focus on like how to improve and what to do differently in the future.
So it's not about placing blame or anything like that.
No, not at all. It's about helping people move forward.
Okay. I like that. And I think that can be really tough for some managers, right?
Oh, definitely. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and point fingers. But Adela encourages managers to actually try and see things from the employee's perspective.
And kind of put themselves in their shoes.
Exactly. And she says that by showing empathy, you can create a more constructive and supportive environment, which makes people more open to receiving feedback and actually making positive changes.
That makes sense because nobody wants to feel like they're being attacked or criticized.
Right. It's about creating a safe space for growth.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned something earlier about graduated feedback. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so basically, Adela has this idea that you should adjust your approach to feedback based on how many times a rule has been broken.
Okay, so it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. So let's say someone breaks a rule for the first time.
Okay.
Adela says that the focus should be on understanding and motivation.
So it's about figuring out why the mistake happened and helping them learn from it.
Right. But if the same rule is broken a second time, then it's time to get a little bit more serious.
Because it indicates a pattern.
Exactly. So in this case, Adela suggests setting clearer expectations and maybe even outlining some consequences.
So you're kind of upping the ante a bit.
Right. And then if the rule is broken a third time,
Oh, boy.
well, then it's time for a more structured approach. Adela recommends closer supervision and maybe even having the employee provide detailed reports on their progress.
Wow. So it's really about escalating the response based on the severity and the frequency of the issue.
Precisely. It's about making sure the issue is taken seriously and providing the support necessary to prevent it from happening again.
That's a really interesting approach. Now, when it comes to the timing of feedback, do you think it's better to give it regularly or wait for a more formal performance review?
Adela is a huge advocate for giving feedback immediately, both positive and negative.
So no waiting for that annual review.
Nope. She says that keeping the feedback fresh in everyone's minds allows for timely adjustments and course correction.
So it's about addressing issues as they arise and not letting them fester.
Exactly. And I'm guessing you can already anticipate what she thinks about the sandwich technique.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that.
She hates it.
I figured as much.
Adela vehemently opposes sandwiching negative feedback between positive comments.
Because it feels disingenuous.
Right. It's like you're trying to soften the blow, but it ends up diluting the impact of both the positive and the negative feedback.
And employees might start to question the sincerity of the praise.
Exactly. They might wonder if you're just saying nice things to cushion the criticism.
So what does she recommend instead?
Adela champions clear, concise, and specific feedback.
No beating around the bush.
Nope. She even provides some concrete examples of impactful positive feedback phrases.
Like what?
One of her favorites is, "You handled that upset client fantastically, especially the way you remained calm and listened attentively."
That's great feedback because it's specific and genuine.
Exactly. It highlights the positive behavior without feeling generic or insincere.
I like that. And, sometimes the simplest feedback can be the most effective.
Absolutely. A sincere thank you can go a long way in making people feel appreciated and valued.
It's about acknowledging their efforts and showing gratitude.
Precisely. And, it's not just about feeling good. There's actually a lot of research to support the idea that supportive supervisors lead to higher retention and engagement.
So there's data to back this up.
Oh, yeah. Studies from the Energy Project and others have shown that employees who feel valued and appreciated are more likely to stay with a company and be more invested in their work.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel good about your job, you're more likely to want to stay and do your best.
Exactly. And, Adela even shares a story about how she had to learn this lesson herself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A team survey revealed that her employees didn't feel supported.
Wow. So even she had room for improvement.
Exactly. And it prompted her to make some changes in her management style.
That's so powerful because it shows that even experienced leaders can benefit from feedback and strive to do better.
Absolutely. We're all works in progress.
Definitely. So what's one practical tip that Adela offers for incorporating feedback into our daily routine?
She suggests scheduling it into your diary.
Oh, that's smart.
Right, because otherwise it's easy to let it slip through the cracks. Make it a priority, not an afterthought. Dedicate time to recognizing your team's achievements and addressing any areas for improvement.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about making feedback a regular part of your workflow.
Exactly.
So now we want to shift gears a bit and talk about another important topic that Adela covers in her book, which is the idea of self-motivation.
Right. She believes that the right people are naturally self-motivated.
But can that be stifled?
Oh, absolutely. Even the most driven individuals can be held back by a micromanaging environment.
Oh, I can definitely see that happening.
She actually tells the story about a friend of hers who worked in an online marketing team where the manager was like a control freak.
Oh no, I bet that wasn't a very fun experience.
Not at all. It stifled creativity, hampered productivity, and eventually led to a lot of talented people leaving the company.
So micromanaging can actually backfire and end up hurting the team in the long run.
Exactly. And Adela really stresses the importance of giving people the space to do their jobs and make decisions without feeling like they're constantly being watched.
It's about empowering them to take ownership of their work.
Precisely. She makes this really interesting comparison.
Oh, I love a good analogy.
What is it?
She says that a manager who needs to sign off on everything is like someone who's holding the reins so tightly that they're choking the horse.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Right. It perfectly illustrates how stifling it can be when people don't have the freedom to do their jobs.
And I imagine that kind of controlling management style can lead to a lot of frustration and burnout for everyone involved.
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
limits the team's potential because everything has to go through the manager's bottleneck.
It creates an unnecessary dependency.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And she even tells a story about a manager who intentionally kept her employees dependent on her.
Wow, it almost sounds like a power play. It can definitely feel that way, and Adela argues that this controlling style ultimately undermines both the manager's well-being and the team's ability to reach their full potential.
It's a lose-lose situation.
Exactly. And this leads us to Adela's concept of motivation by responsibility.
Motivation by responsibility. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
She basically believes that giving employees autonomy actually makes them more motivated and engaged in the long run.
It's about trusting them to do their jobs and giving them the freedom to make decisions.
Precisely. She contrasts two different employee scenarios. One where someone is heavily supervised, and the other where they have clear responsibilities and the autonomy to make independent decisions.
Okay, I'm curious to hear how these two scenarios play out.
So in the first scenario where the employee is constantly being micromanaged, they just kind of go through the motions.
They're not really invested in the work.
Exactly. They're just doing what they're told without feeling any real ownership or pride in their accomplishments.
But what about the employee who's given more autonomy?
Well, Adela says that this employee consistently exceeds expectations.
Because they're intrinsically motivated.
Exactly. They're driven by a desire to do their best, and they take pride in their work.
So giving employees responsibility not only benefits them, but it also benefits the manager.
Absolutely. Because it frees up the manager's time and energy to focus on bigger picture issues.
It's a win-win situation.
Exactly. Now, Adela does acknowledge that letting go of control can be a challenge for some managers.
Especially those who are used to a more directive style.
Right, but she encourages managers to trust their teams and provide the support they need to flourish.
So it's about finding that balance between providing guidance and giving people the space to make their own decisions.
Precisely. And she actually outlines a 3-step process for guiding employees toward independent problem solving.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about that. What are the 3 steps?
Well, the first step is pretty simple. When a problem comes up, don't just jump in and tell your team what to do. Instead, try asking them for their ideas.
Oh, I see. So it's about shifting from a telling mode to a asking mode.
Exactly. It shows them that you trust their judgment and encourages them to take ownership of the situation.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's about empowering them to be part of the solution.
Right. And then the second step is to give them the time and space they need to think things through.
So no hovering over their shoulders or checking in every 5 minutes.
Exactly. It's about resisting the urge to micromanage and letting them work through the problem at their own pace.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you feel pressured, it's harder to think creatively.
Right. And then the final step is to have a conversation with them about their proposed solutions.
So it's not about just throwing them in the deep end and letting them sink or swim.
No, it's about providing guidance and support, but without dictating the outcome.
So it's about helping them develop their problem-solving skills, and build confidence in their abilities.
Exactly. And Adela shares that she's often been pleasantly surprised by the creative and effective solutions her team has come up with when given the freedom to think independently.
It's amazing what can happen when you give people this space to shine.
Right. And it also frees you up as a manager to focus on other things.
That makes sense. Now, you mentioned earlier that Adela had this employee who was struggling with the teacher recruitment process. Can you tell me more about that story?
Yeah, so this employee was responsible for creating the weekly schedule for the language lessons,
Okay.
and it was a really tedious and time-consuming process.
I can imagine.
Lots of data entry, lots of back and forth with teachers, and it was just a real pain point for everyone involved.
So what did Adela do?
Well, instead of just trying to throw more resources at the problem, she challenged this employee to come up with a better system.
So she turned it into an opportunity for innovation.
Exactly. And the employee really stepped up to the challenge.
What did he come up with?
Well, he completely revamped the process, introducing new software, streamlining communication, and just making everything a lot more efficient.
Wow, that's amazing.
Wow.
So by giving him the autonomy to solve the problem, he not only improved the process, but he also probably felt a lot more valued and engaged in his work.
Exactly. It's a perfect example of how empowering employees can lead to unexpected benefits for everyone involved.
I love that. Now, I'm curious about the flip side of this. What happens when employees aren't given responsibility and autonomy?
Well, Adela says that when people are micromanaged or don't feel trusted, they tend to become less invested in their work.
They just go through the motions.
Exactly. They don't feel that same sense of ownership or pride in their accomplishments.
Because it feels like they're just following orders.
Right. And when that happens, it creates a negative cycle of distrust and disengagement.
So it's really important to foster a culture of trust and empowerment.
Absolutely. Adela believes that when managers give their employees the freedom to shine, they ultimately free themselves up to focus on bigger picture issues.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And it creates a more positive and fulfilling work environment for everyone involved.
I love that. Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Happy Manager, what are some of the key takeaways that our listeners should keep in mind?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that creating a happy and productive team isn't about some magic formula. It's about making a conscious effort to implement the principles that Adela outlines in her book.
Right. It's about being intentional about your leadership style.
Exactly. It's about putting the right people in the right roles, giving them the support and autonomy they need to succeed, and fostering a culture of trust and respect.
And it's about remembering that everyone on your team is an individual with their own unique strengths and motivations.
Absolutely. So take the time to get to know your team members, understand what drives them, and create an environment where they can thrive.
It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued, appreciated, and empowered to do their best work.
Exactly. And when you do that, everyone benefits.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on what it means to be a truly effective leader.
Me too. It's inspiring to see someone like Adela who's not only achieved success in her own career, but has also created a workplace where everyone feels happy and fulfilled.
And the best part is that her advice is practical and actionable. Anyone can implement these principles regardless of their industry or experience level.
Right. It's all about taking that first step and making a commitment to creating a better work environment for yourself and your team.
So to our listeners out there, I encourage you to pick up a copy of The Happy Manager and start implementing Adela's wisdom today.
You won't regret it.
Until next time, keep diving deep